Look at verse 30. How long was he in the desert? After 40 years had passed, an angel appeared to Moses in the flames of a burning bush in the desert near Mount Sinai. So that would make Moses how old when he stood before the burning bush? 80 years old. Now, how many years did they wander in the desert after they got out of Egypt? 40. And then, don't turn to it, but write it down. In Deuteronomy chapter 34, verse 7, we read the words that Moses died when he was 120 years old. Well, mathematically it fits, doesn't it? At age 40, he killed the Egyptian. He had to flee for his life out in the desert. He was out there for 40 years. Then he came to the burning bush. He was 80 when God says, let my people go. So he went to talk to Pharaoh. We'll talk about the story of the Passover in a few moments. And then they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, and then Moses died. So 120 years old when he died. Now, we're done with Acts. Turn back to Exodus, chapter 2, verse 23. Let's begin to really hunker down and see if we can correlate biblical and Egyptian history. Chapter 2, verse 23. During that long period, now let me tell you what long period is talking about, that 40-year period after he had killed the Egyptian before he encounters the burning bush. During that long period, the king of Egypt died. The Israelites groaned in their slavery and cried out, and their cry for help because of the slavery went up to God. Now, it's very important that we try to understand who was this Pharaoh, because whoever this Pharaoh was, his son was Yul Brynner. I mean, his son was the Pharaoh of the Exodus. You get what I'm saying? All right. How can we find out that? First of all, this Pharaoh had to have reigned at least how many years? At least 40. Remember, Moses killed the Egyptian. When Pharaoh found out about it, he was angry. Moses flees for his life. And 40 years later, he learns Pharaoh's dead. That means he's safe to come back. So he had to reign at least 40 years. Not many pharaohs in history reigned 40 years. Let me show you something. This is really interesting. Let's put all this together, and I think you'll see where we're going. Turn to 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 1. 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 1. There's a real hint in here, a real clue, which will help us to try to anchor in history about the date when the Exodus happened. And if we can anchor the date, we can go back now and find out who the Pharaoh of the Exodus was. 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 1. In the 480th year after the Israelites had come out of Egypt, that is, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign. Now, that's all we need to read. So what that's going to tell us then is, if we can anchor when Solomon reigned, and trust me, scholars pretty much are in agreement that Solomon began his reign around 970 BC. All right. The 4th year of Solomon's reign would be what year? Think, all right, 966. You got to think backwards. 966 BC. Very good. Because we're going towards zero. All right. Now, according to 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 1 then, if we add 480 years to this, then it brings us to the point where the Israelites came out of Egypt. So if we add 480 years to 966 BC, what do we get? 1446 BC. 1446 BC. All right. With that established here from 1 Kings chapter 6, verse 1, then let's correlate it with Egyptian history and see who was reigning on the throne around 1446 BC. Well, we know that in 1450 BC, a major pharaoh died. His name, now notice this, Tutmose, the son of Tut. Tutmosis III died. Tutmosis III died in 1450 BC, so say the Egyptologists. How long did Tutmosis III reign? According to Egyptologists, he reigned 54 years. Okay, so far we're doing okay. He fulfills that qualification. then if this would be the Pharaoh from which Moses fled after killing the Egyptian, then his little boy would be the Pharaoh. Who was he? Amenhotep the second. Amenhotep the second. Now, let me be fair with you and give you the two schools of thought here. 1446 is the early date theory of the Exodus. According to that theory, Amenhotep II is the Pharaoh.